Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Crawford. How are you doing this evening? Anything? Yes? Okay, come on. Are you out there? All right, let me hear it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello. My name is Rebecca Stummy. I'm the senior producer of live programming and events here at LAist, and I'm so happy that you all have joined us for this event tonight. Thank you so much. So without further ado, let me welcome your host for this evening, LAist climate and environment reporter, Erin Stone.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. We're so grateful to have you. I'm Erin Stone, LA's climate and environment reporter, and we've got some very special guests tonight. So let's introduce them. We have Zaire Calvin, who is an Eaton Fire survivor and advocate for Altadena's recovery. Let's give him a hand. And then we've got Annie Barbour, who is a Tubbs Fire survivor, 2017 fire in Northern California, as well as a program liaison for United policyholders. And last but certainly not least, we have Dan Faina, who is the president of home building company Williams Rebuild. Hi, Dan. So yeah, thank you all for being here. And I just want to take a moment because this has been such a difficult time for our communities and for so many of you, I'm sure. I want to just ask a question. How many of you were directly impacted by Eaton or Palisades or any of the other fires? How many of you know someone who was directly impacted? So everyone in this room has been impacted. So I wanted to take a moment for you all to just acknowledge that and everything you're going through, and also take a moment of silence to remember and honor the at least 30 people who died in these fires. So let's take a moment. All right. Thank you all for that. So we really, we compiled these panelists because they're all experts in fire recovery in their own ways. So I wanted to start off with them just each telling us a little bit about themselves. So let's start with Zaire. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a fire survivor of the Eaton Fire?
I guess the first part has been trying to think where I want to start.
Yeah.
Dealing with the trauma of the fire, of course, and of losing a loved one, and then being set into action after that point, I guess, would be the next stage.
And you lost your sister, you lost your family homes, you lost a lot.
Definitely. I lost my sister. I lost 5 properties on 2 lots. Houses and a couple cars, and most of all, with all of that, I lost my whole community who lost family members. Literally, we had a vigil yesterday, and you're talking about people who are down the street who lost their sister. You're talking about somebody who's up the street who lost their mom. You're talking about the neighbor who she lost her life that you've known your whole life. You're talking about when you're part of a community like that, it's so much loss because you're thinking about every single person along with yourself, because these are all of your family, friends, and loved ones that, you know, you've been with your whole life. And I've been in Altadena my entire life, so embedded in the community, you know, from horseback riding to swimming to just what everything Altadena, tennis to gang culture to every part of what Altadena has represented, I have been involved in for my life.
And now you're working to mobilize community and help rebuild.
Yes.
So Annie, tell us a little bit about your story.
So I am a 2017 Tubbs Fire survivor. The fire, the night that was impacted on us, was not supposed to hit us. It jumped the freeway and 2 lanes on either side, and this was before that was normal. So I got out in 2.5 minutes. It was at 2:20 in the morning. I got my dog, her leash, my purse, little money in a drawer, and I got my clothes on. My neighbor got out at 4 minutes, and the back bumper of her car was melted. That's what my escape was easier than a lot of my neighbors who stood in the shower and ran through the flames. So the impact of all of that was tremendous for everybody in the neighborhood. One of the things that we did, we lived in Coffee Park. We started a block captain program. We named it Coffee Strong, and our mission was to help our neighbors get home. And we had an amazing recovery because we banded together? No, because there was a ton of different factors. Each fire has different factors, whether it's the amount of insurance, whether you live rural, if you're a subdivision. There's all these different factors as to how effective the recovery can be. After about 2 years, United Policyholders had come into our community and helped everybody. So for those that don't know, United Policyholders helps you navigate your insurance after disaster. And we do webinars on everything from how to get your contents paid, how to read and understand your policy, how to pick a builder, how to take care of your finances during the rebuild. And they had helped so many people in my community. And she asked me if I would, Amy Bach asked me if I would volunteer for an event, and I did. And then she offered me a job. And just like starting Coffee Strong, if they had told us the learning curve was that steep, none of us would have raised our hands. The same with United Policyholders. There's a lot to learn in these disasters about insurance, about people, about trauma, all of those things that everybody in this room has been impacted by. So I feel very fortunate that part of my recovery was basically paying it forward. And being able to do this kind of work is extremely meaningful to me and the best work of my life.
Thank you, Annie. And Dan, tell us a little bit about what prompted you guys to open this section of your company, Williams Rebuild.
Thank you, Erin. So after the Thomas Fire, so Williams Homes, we're a purpose-built community home builder. We've been building in LA County area throughout really all of California for about the last 30 years. And when the Thomas Fire hit the city of Ventura, December 7th of 2017, the owners of the company, Lance and Sadie Williams, great SoCal family, I've had the pleasure of knowing for the last 20 years working with them. We watched as half a community that we had recently built go up in flames during the Thomas Fire. And we couldn't sleep. We felt compelled that we had to do something about it. And so what started as approaching those specific families where, hey, we just built your home recently, we can do it again for you very efficiently, and try to make this as great an experience as we can. They all said yes, but what we didn't realize is that pull on our hearts, that we're home builders. We need to do more than just rebuild these few homes that are easy for us to rebuild. And what that began as a journey to just come alongside families in the city of Ventura and navigate this process. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We had no idea what that journey would look like. And we traveled it with dozens of families over the following 3 to 5 years in rebuilding part of the city of Ventura that was lost. There was about 1,000 homes lost there. And we took great pride in what we learned through that journey, lifelong relationships with many of these families, and we hope that there would never be a good reason to put that experience to use. So obviously, January 7th, one of our teammates that worked with us on that endeavor in the city of Ventura after the Thomas Fire has been a Altadena resident for the last 50 years. And so she called the very first night and said, you better get ready. And we met with our owners, and we want to share first and foremost. We've been just about educating anything we can do. We can't be all things to all people. We can't rebuild every home that was lost, but we for sure can educate on what we learned. And we learned a lot, many things we never expected to. Yeah. So we're here to educate and for where it makes sense, help people on that journey.
Thank you all for those. And yeah, what I'm hearing a lot is no idea what to expect, then you eventually learn some lessons. So let's dig into those lessons. I want to start with the biggest challenges and pitfalls. First off, I want to start with Zaire, what you're hearing from folks in the community right now about the biggest challenges they're facing. And then I kind of want to hear from you guys about how you navigated that in past fires.
So the biggest pitfalls has been housing would probably be the number one. Just trying to get everyone housed right after the fire. There's so many predatory things that went on where it came to people trying to find housing in apartments and having to use their ALE at that point for the ones who had it. And the ones who didn't, they were fighting with FEMA and trying to figure out how they could be housed. So that was the biggest, and I think it's still the most daunting because, again, that ALE will run out. So then now you're talking about 22,000 people who are still looking to be housed while figuring out, while they're still paying their mortgages, while they're still paying for regular things that's going on has been the issue. So the first thing I was able to do in that time period was meet with Catherine Barger to try to get all these things waived for the community, meaning as the community asked, I made sure I took it to her. And we literally got to get like the permit fees waived and the things that are happening now because there's a whole comprehensive plan that's kind of been given to her to show like this is what we're missing and this is what's needed because there's people still living in cars. There's still our elders who are still in hotels. Like the realness of this, people were like, oh, time has passed. This has gotten easier. It's not gotten easier. It's actually gotten harder because now it's starting to, the reality that you're unhoused is setting in.
Right. And people are now having to really make those decisions about rebuilding, right? So, Annie, tell us a little bit about your process of deciding to rebuild, how you found trusted contractors, and also worked with your insurance.
So I was pretty fortunate because one of the duties I took on with Coffee Strong was to there's three kinds of contractors. Some do a little bit of each. There's a production builder who, if you were to go to a subdivision and you said, I like this floor plan and I like this elevation, which is the look of the outside, whether it's a craftsman style or a ranch style, I did a matrix on those people, not the semi-custom and not the custom, but just what do they offer, what kind of foundation, how much per square foot, did they have, what kind of finishes were they selling, those kind of things. So people could look at it and say, I can't do this one, I can't do that one, kind of streamline it. And in that process, I had no idea how I was going to rebuild. To be very honest with you, I was more focused on my neighbors. But when I met the contractor who actually had the answers that made sense, he answered a question that they didn't have an answer to. He got his team together real quick and they came up with the answer. And then I had one more question that I got an email about 2 hours later on. I didn't feel I was BS'd. He had a plan, he had a system. I felt secure. And so I went with that builder. And that builder did a really nice job. It took him 6 months to build my house because that was his plan. It worked out beautifully. I was very happy with it. A lot of neighbors, the one thing that I will tell you is that a lot of people who go through these disasters have expectations of wanting more. And, I can only attribute it to the fact that they just lost everything. And so a lot of them were kind of pie in the sky. And that's a pitfall because then you're going to contractors and you're asking for more than what you can afford. And some of those contractors will prey on you. And they'll say things like, yeah, I can do it for what you have in your insurance.
Yeah.
And then you get re-victimized. So I got to watch my neighbors go through that. It was not a pretty process. It happens in every single disaster. And it's the one main thing that I really am vocal about when it comes to not insurance. It's make sure that you interview that contractor. And there are steps to take that are far beyond just looking at the California State Licensing Board that are very impactful. You can Google their names, their companies. If they built in my fire, they may have done a horrible job, but their license might be completely clean. But there might be a newspaper article about them. Their bond may have been taken because they went to mediation and they lost. They didn't do the right things. Yeah. So that key part is huge. And that was the biggest lesson I learned, and I watched it over and over and over again. Have that contract reviewed by a contract attorney. Put your money in an escrow account so your builder never has more money than completion. That's your security. If your builder goes bankrupt, your builder walks away, he'll have 50% of the build done, he'll have 50% of the money. You can still recover.
Yeah, thank you for that, Annie. Yeah, thank you both. So yeah, Dan, tell us a little bit about, what are the biggest, when people come to you and are wanting to rebuild, what are the biggest mistakes that they might be making or challenges that you see?
Yeah, it's the main thing we always want to talk about and educate on, and we had no idea going into serving families after the Thomas Fire of these pitfalls. But really, speaking to much of what Annie said, one of the greatest ones is truly not knowing who you're hiring to go on this journey. And the piece of that we always start with in educating folks is you got to have the whole journey in mind. And so that led us to, in the Thomas Fire, there was nothing like this, no platform like this. 1,000 homes had burned. There were community meetings, and there was one organization that got kind of out in front of this, and that organization was predominantly led by architects. And the messaging, and people were looking for answers. What should we do? And this is not necessarily wrong, so if you're an architect, please don't come beat me up. But folks are running out, immediately hiring an architect. And it became all about how much does the architecture cost? Who can I get to do my architecture as quickly, efficiently, and as low cost as possible? But architects aren't going to they have one piece, and it's often the first piece of the process, but they're not going to give you perspective, by and large, on the entire journey that you're traveling. And so what that became, and we summarize it as the whole journey, the whole perspective, making sure you have a well-rounded idea of where you want to go and all the steps before taking too many of the early steps, is what haunts me about the Thomas Fire, the dozens of families we could not help that wanted to rebuild, that sold their lots. And the number one reason, in our experience, limited experience, but it was ours, was that folks had spent and dreamed and come up with a design that they had no ability to build. And sometimes $250,000 of costs spent to realize it's not going to be possible to build what they designed.
Right. Yeah. And, as people are trying to make these decisions, they're thinking about cost, and there's so many things up in the air right now. I wonder if you could all speak to kind of how do you navigate these situations as a community? Because obviously Altadena, Palisades, block after block destroyed, and it really does have to be some sort of collective effort. So I wonder if you could talk about what happened. Zaire, tell us a little bit about the policy that you think is going to help Altadena, and Annie, you can bounce off of that. Yeah.
So for the whole 6 months that this has gone on, hit the ground running, and been in every meeting, every Eaton Fire collaborative, every home builder symposium, and literally from different fire victims from all over the United States. I've just been doing research to learn what were all the pitfalls that everybody else made and why they're not rebuilt, why their communities did not come back in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And literally just been doing that research for the last 6 months. And what I'm learning is it was a lack of leadership and understanding, because we're learning from everything that everyone else made mistakes from. And then it was a lack of community Like the community has to be on one accord because you have to use government, philanthropy, and community together. So that's what Governor Newsom just spoke about, and that came from what was laid out. So hopefully it is working, what we're doing, and that comes from the Altadena, what I'm calling A&R, which is the Altadena Native Rebuild, where we're rebuilding ourselves. So it's literally going throughout all of Altadena and finding out what is everyone's issues, what is going on, what are their needs, and then putting it all in one big perspective.
Trying to mobilize
So
everyone.
to mobilize everyone. So basically to do a community rebuild, because it makes no sense. Like if one person builds their house and the rest of your block's not built, that's what you can get your house built, like, then what? My neighbors aren't there. The infrastructure's not there. None of this makes sense. That's my nerd side. It's like, it has to make sense. So it's literally pulling all the pieces together to say, hey, we have to have infrastructure. We have to have this. All of this has to go together at one time. If they're going to rebuild, why not rip up the roads now and lay everything now? If they're going to redo the water and get the PSI right, do all that now so while we're rebuilding together, we can have an actual future. And then the cost, to mitigate the cost, to answer your question, has to be with community sources, meaning we all build together. If we build together, we can buy all fireproof stuff. We're not gonna, why would you go with one contractor to figure out what's going on when you can community build and buy all your foundation together? If one neighbor does a survey and another neighbor does a survey, your house just got surveyed. Why are you going to spend your money individually to do that? It makes absolutely no sense. But I do believe in everybody's choice to build back how they want to.
Right.
I don't mean you can either you can pick a choice, or you can do your own choice, or you can pick one of the pre-planned. All of those are the options. But let's put all the contractors together, all the architects, just how they cleaned our lots is what A&R is. Let's put them all on one board, make sure they're certified, 2-year plan, and they can start rebuilding back street by street, block by block, community by community, and then we actually have a chance to rebuild at cost, meaning now you can do $150 per square foot for everybody because you're gonna do it to scale, and it's holding contractors in place and all that, and they'll be able to make their money that way.
Yeah. And Annie, I mean, what are some examples of you guys, I mean, you were a block captain, you really organized, that you guys went through in terms of achieving something like that?
Yeah, we didn't do a real great job of that, to be very honest with you. That was one of our pitfalls. We should have, as I sit on long-term recovery groups for United Policyholders, I advise economy of scale. How are you going to capture that? Right after your fire at the Disaster Resource Center, people were coming in and were asking me questions like, how do we do what Coffee Strong did? And some of that is doing it better. But using the same person to grade, if they're going to bring all the equipment there, you're going to get economy of scale. If you can find a contractor that will build 8 of the homes out of the 15 on your block, you're going to get economy of scale. And capturing that is big. You're not going to get everybody to buy in. Nobody wants to be told exactly what they have to do. We all have our own ideas. But in the big picture, we want as much of the communities to come back as possible. And I think the biggest thing that I can share with you guys is that our community, after all we went through, people got scammed, people passed away, people had medical issues. This is a heavy lift. At the end of the day, you can drive down any street. We all have front porches. Everybody's waving at you. My boyfriend will say to me, do we have to go buy the house? Can we go have dinner first? Because he knows that going through the neighborhood will take us 20 minutes. But there is a silver lining, and you're not there yet. But I really want to impress upon you, as you navigate this and you utilize the tools of other survivors and move forward, and really not, every survivor has this ball of anxiety right here, and it's spinning. And it's forcing you to make decisions that you may not be ready to make. You need to hold that beast down and recognize that that could be your worst enemy. Hang on to your neighborhood, hang on to your neighbors, work together. This guy has just been amazing with trying to resolve the problems, the issues, and there are way more issues than what you're dealing with. Your city, your counties, they don't know how to deal with this. There's the learning curve for them is huge. So you have to capture those things. Those questions, you need to find an answer for them. You need to band together.
Yeah.
One person getting an answer for the whole group.
Yeah, and I know the block captain system is one way folks are doing that, which you were involved in. And Dan, tell us a little bit about how, as folks, are kind of trying to band together. I mean, what does that look like on a practical level as a builder? Like what are some concrete examples of how you save costs in that manner?
Absolutely. I mean, it's building back together as a community is really the key. And that goes for many aspects of the rebuild journey and sharing information and into practically actually building. We actually didn't see anything like it. It's been the most heart-wrenching thing to see how beautiful it is, how this community has banded together and shared and participated. It was unlike anything we saw in the Ventura community after the Thomas fire. And so we have great hope of that. But building back from a practical home building standpoint, we built thousands of homes in LA County, and everyone will tell you the economies come with scale. It's why the price per square foot question is so difficult for anyone to answer and not be full of it, okay? So what that means by scale, we started off after the Thomas fire, and actually I said, well, this would be great. We can do this efficiently. We're going to create a catalog of floor plans, and everyone's going to love them because we love them. And that couldn't be further from the truth. People wanted what they wanted. So what we found, what we believe is a happy middle ground, and we call it a programmatic approach to custom. So it's really our process, your desires, bringing those to life, meeting in the middle to get you what is truly a custom home, with a lot of the process-driven items synchronized so that we can build together in geographically similar locations to drive the costs down for everyone. At the same time, we also, being a traditional purpose-built community home builder, we do have designs, or we are trying to partner with groups like the Foothill Catalog Foundation, who are creating just a fantastic offering for this community. And the reason we're so excited about it is because if the community is excited about it, that is one of the best ways to bring efficiency and drive the cost down. Because really, it's just a labor and material logistics item. I can take a 2,000 square foot home, every material being exactly the same. And if I'm only building one on the street, and I'm calling my framer and I'm calling my plumber for a price to drive out and work on that one home, versus calling them and saying, hey, the whole neighborhood, they're all queuing up, they're ready to start. They don't care if they're all from the Foothill catalog. They don't care if they're custom designs that we guided each family through. They care in the mobilization. You said grading. We have to pay $25,000 to $50,000 on a larger subdivision just to get the equipment there. So if they're coming to set up the equipment to grade one lot, you're eating the entire cost of that versus doing it together. So if I'm calling the framer and we say, hey, we have 10 homes on this street versus one, the cost it ranges between half to a third of what you'll pay to build your home by yourself. And that's just from our real cost data. So we have individual custom homes under construction in Southern California, none yet in Altadena. And we compare that same contractor to where we're building groups of 10 at a time. And it is 3+ times more expensive. Same contractors, same materials, same quality of execution. The decision to do this together will be collectively the greatest thing the community can offer each other to build back more efficiently. And for some, it will be the only way that they can build back.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd like to add to that many people in my community did custom builds. And if you were to ask them now, some of them are completely happy with it. Nobody who goes through a fire has spent 3 to 5 years checking on tiles and finishes and floor plans and designing their dream house. People after a disaster are traumatized. They've taken on the work of being an insurance expert, figuring out how to get their money, taking care of their family, learning how to be a contractor. How do you offer that oversight? So you guys now have like 3, 4 full-time jobs, and that's not even counting taking care of yourself. So just be mindful of the fact that I had a 1970s tract home, and I'd done a lot of work to that tract home, but it was still the 1970s. You still tripped when you walked into that living room that was a step down, right? I didn't need to duplicate that. And by going with a production builder, I got to pick my floor plan. And I got to pick an open floor plan, heated bathroom floors. So don't close your mind to, I have to have this or I have to have that. Go and talk to all of these people and find out what they offer and do your research before you make a decision. Because basically, you're going to rebuild a house. It's not going to be your home until you get back into it and make it your home. Because nothing you build will be exactly what you lost. And a lot of these homes were 100 years old. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who, as much as our heart and soul is our home, you probably had a list on the refrigerator of 3 things you wanted to do this year to upgrade that house. So just recognize the real picture and the fact that this is hard, this is traumatic, and recognize what you actually can handle. Because a custom build that's out of your price range, that is going to take 5 years, 4 years for a total custom.
A true custom where you pick everything, yeah. We tell people if you have unlimited budget and unlimited time, then it is a great path.
Right.
It will test you. And yes, 3 years.
Yeah, and you'll be out of your loss of use or ALE. So you'll be paying a mortgage and rent at the same time. So you have to really be practical and factor all that in. I didn't know those questions to ask after my fire. So I know you guys don't know that either.
Yeah, and I want to make sure we have plenty of time for questions from audience members. So any final, what are the main things you want to know right now, Zaire? You want other people in the community in terms of how they can, do you have any suggestions for how folks can kind of band together on their own block and kind of create that community?
Yes, it's just we have all the block captains that are going on and utilizing what the information that is going to come. You don't want to be the first one, and that's why I was telling people when people run around, I got to get my permit. I was like, it's going to get cleared. You want to wait. You want to be kind of in the middle. The build is going to happen together. So if you're able to do that, you rushing to do all of these things or stressing yourself out. To give an example, the reason I'm an expert on building at this point is because I literally had just rebuilt my house and remodeled it fully. So when I say that, Olympic-sized pool, all the fun, walk-in, shower, side to side, all the stuff that you're talking about, did it all, was living in it, excited. Was excited for my 1-year-old daughter, just had her winter wonderland party. It was the greatest thing ever, was finally about to take that breath and just live and be in my backyard and living that type of life. That's why I said it's not a rush. So obviously I have my plans of that house, and I have my mother's house that's next door that I have to rebuild and do all of that. Ask me if I've turned in anything. No, I haven't. I'm not rushing to do it because I know I wouldn't be saying it for the community if myself I'm not rushing. Yes, you should be getting stuff online and putting stuff together and figuring out what you want. take peace in that. Like, hey, say, let me figure out what I want. The advantage we have is there is a lawsuit that you will get paid for off of this also. So there is that kind of security on the back end that you will get some extra money, which makes ours a little different also. So there will be leveraging to be able to, if you feel like you can't build back and I'm not going to have enough money, it will be leveraged through the lawsuit and all that stuff because we're putting in programs. I can say that because there are actual programs and funding that is available, that will be available even if you didn't have insurance, even if you're at cost. So I'm just saying this to the community because that's what's really happening. I'm not giving you guys thought or theory. I'm literally, when he just said that, I literally just left the meeting. Who'd you name? Who was the building people? That's does the homes.
Foothill Catalog.
I literally just left with the CEO from the Foothill Catalog before I came here in a meeting talking about the financing to put all the programs together so we'll get financed for the community to make sure that there's a Altadena Land Trust where we will pay for your house to be built. And if you get lawsuit, meaning they will pay for all of it, and then you can buy it back at cost with no interest. Because I don't want us as fire victims shouldn't be paying anything extra after what we've been going through. So everything is to be taken care of, not to take away from us. So when you hear me fighting, it's literally to make sure we have money in the bank, not that they're taking all of our money from us.
Yeah. So there's this, ideally that's how it would go, right? And we'll see, I mean, insurance is always a challenge. The lawsuits can take some time. As people are I want to open it up to you guys because we have this great panel and I know you have a lot of questions. So we're going to open it up to questions now. Please just make sure your question does end in a question mark.
I'd like to add one thing to that,
Annie,
though.
yeah.
And believe me, everything you're doing is absolutely amazing. My fire was a lawsuit. And what I saw in that, we are almost 8 years. People are at 60%, 70% of their determination. We never know how these are actually going to work. But what I can tell you is that the people who tried to wait till the lawsuit didn't get all the benefits of what the city set up, the not having to pay permitting fees because you'd already paid those when you first had your house. So recognize that what I don't want to see and what happened in my neighborhood and what happened in Paradise was people projected how much they might get from the lawsuit. They built to that standard. They got back home and they had to sell their house. We do not want anybody re-traumatized, okay? So just recognize there's limitations in all of this, and until it plays out, the way I looked at the lawsuit was if I got $20, I'd be happy. And I just needed to move forward and get my life back.
Yeah, so there's like this urgency, but at the same time, people need to take a breath and understand that this is a process and that you don't need to rush into anything because that's the way to go. So yeah, let's open it up to questions. I want you guys to be able to ask questions. So go ahead. Who's first? Got someone in the back there?
Thank you. You mentioned an organization. I'm sorry, the lady in the middle, what's your name again?
Annie Barbour, yeah.
An organization called Coffee Strong, I believe. What is that exactly?
That was simply a grassroots effort that we put together. We became a nonprofit, and we found out the needs of our community, and we found the correct answer. We pushed forward on getting an answer on those, and we made sure that every bit of the information went out exactly how it was given to us, so that there was no mistruths. It didn't change the trajectory if it was wrong of anybody's recovery. But basically, we started very, very generic, as the block captains here have done. And then we grew from there, becoming a nonprofit. We had bingo. We'd make $5,000. We would have capacity. And we would hardscape and landscape areas. We didn't have HOAs. So it was totally driven by what the community needed.
Yeah, so similar sounds like what Zaire is trying to do with the community and kind of building that community power. All right, anyone else? Oh, we'll wait for the mic.
I'm coming.
Thank you. Yes, question for Annie. Do you know whether your production builder will be building homes down here?
Unfortunately, he will not. He went on to build companies and assisted livings. But he came back to help the community because he lost his home also.
I wonder, I mean, yeah.
How do you take care of yourselves as you're, Zaire, I'm thinking about you. You've been at every Altadena meeting. You came from one straight to this. Like, how are you taking care of yourself, and how are you finding the stamina to like just keep going?
I think it's the charge of the community, seeing how much that we've lost and understanding that if there's no leadership and learning from all the different people who've been through things, that if we don't make a press for it now, it will be lost and we will end up in the same predicament. My background is mental health. I've worked at 5 Acres and in different places. I'm a therapeutic behavioral specialist. So I use my own I self-therapy and work out, fast a lot. I do a lot of fasting, a lot of praying, a lot of meditation, but a lot of this has been God-driven, to be honest, to keep pushing the way I've been in these spaces. It's been a blessing.
Tell her your kryptonite.
She's gonna tell him. She's gonna
She
make me
outed you.
laugh. So my kryptonite, what I do to deal with trauma and stress, is I get chocolate chip cookie wasted and milk, and I've been going crazy. Even though I train and tell everybody what to do when it comes to that, I go home and bake so many cookies and just eat them and laugh every night, and I can't stop. So that has been a bad habit that has come out of it, but it makes me so happy.
But I'm
Everyone
going
has
to
their
tell you
vice,
that
Zaire.
that we also talk about the freshman 15 and in Coffee Park. Sometimes it was the Fire 20. Whatever that looked like, you're going to rely on things that maybe aren't the best. Try not to have it be alcohol or drugs. But
Cookies
I tell
aren't so bad.
people at the I tell
Cookies are
people
okay,
at the
guys.
Disaster Resource Center all the time, you're going to take care of this person's going to take care of this person, and that may be a tub of Ben and Jerry's ice cream and just binge watching some program. Okay, sometimes that's the best mental health.
Just go
We've
walking
got
afterwards.
a question. over there. Yeah, just take a walk after. It's okay.
Thank you for a good program. Logistics of getting homeowners in the same subdivision to agree to use one contractor at the same time is like impossible. Can someone discuss using prefab homes? Because now you can have 50 people all over the community using a factory to make walls and panels and roofs. And today, prefab homes can look just as custom home as any.
Absolutely. First of all, there's really only one prefab factory that's in our market area. That's Plant Prefab. And I'm going up there tomorrow morning. Completely agree with you. From a logistics standpoint, home building is done much the same way it was done 100 years ago. They dump a bunch of lumber on the ground, they cut it, 40% of that lumber goes into the trash. And we just don't have the room to do it. A few things on prefab. Plant Prefab has a great approach. They do both modules, which think of big building blocks where everything inside is already done and they connect it together. It's actually a lot more expensive than if we built your house using traditional methods on the lot. It hasn't gotten there. It's like when solar panels first came out, they were a lot more expensive. But what Plant Prefab has done is they do both. They also do wall panels. So we take the design of a home, and a company like Plant Prefab really designs it, chunks it up into the individual wall panels. They build them, heavy use of machinery, and still a lot of people in their factory controlled environment, little to no waste, and they can be delivered in what takes probably 2 to 3 weeks to what we call stick frame a house, cutting the lumber each piece and nailing it together one piece at a time. We can have a home from foundation to fully framed with 3 truck deliveries in 3 days. So it helps with time, and there's actually on the wall panel side, it's been our experience, we've seen comparable costs. Modular and true prefab, maybe for an ADU, there's some opportunity there, but we haven't been able to find costs that are appealing.
Quick follow-up.
There are more than just planned prefab. There is Azure Printed Homes. There is a Cover. There are a couple other companies that can do it, and they can do it less expensive than on site.
And I can address some of that. Yeah, they have DigiCreek and all those. Like literally, it's like 4 or 5 different ones that are now capable of new technology and new. Again, is just seeing to scale. So the issue we're gonna have as a community is making sure that we have enough. Every contractor is worried about getting a deal. It's not that. We're gonna need all the contractors. Right. So that's the part. They don't understand the workforce we're about to need. So I'm challenging the opposite. I'm saying, hey, we need all of you guys. We wanna see how much can you guys do to scale. Some people are gonna wanna go prefab. Some people are gonna wanna go DigiCrete. Some people wanna go a traditional stick. I need all of you guys together to figure out how we're going to do this. We don't even know what our workforce is going to be. So a lot of that's going to be an issue with what's going on around. I'm thinking about all the different pieces to make sense. So we have to make sure all of the contractors, all of these prefab, all of these people are going to be included in this rebuild because there's no way not to do. That's what we mean by community rebuild. It's not agreeing on one contractor. We're agreeing on all of them. They all go into one box, and then we lower all their costs and say, hey, you're not sending your kids to college off of this, but you can eat. Like, that's what we're trying to say. Like, you can feed your family, but we can't send you to college right now. We need to be rebuilt. This is from the heart. So you need to really help us rebuild our community first. And the idea was to build back to finishes. That was my idea. Everybody could build back to a certain percentage, certain price to your finishes. Then if you want to take that price high with a contractor, take it high. But you have your home built exactly how you want it, exactly the walls you want it. Then you can figure out how much money you have left to see how exclusive you want to go. I would say it like that.
And please be aware of tariffs. When you talk to builders, ask them how they're going to combat tariffs.
Yeah.
Some of them, I know that
very
there's
unclear.
one that built in Santa Rosa, and they have a warehouse full of lumber and some of the components of the builds because they do not want to have half-built houses at the end of this.
Hello, this is directed to our environmental reporter. So I live downtown in the Arts District, and the night of the first night of the fire, even though I'm downtown, there was so much wind, I couldn't even walk across the street. I had to be helped across one of the streets because it was blowing so heavily. And I kept watching the hills, and I kept wondering what was burning. I kept the radio on all night long for days and days. And then I realized and heard that, asbestos was burning. Teslas were burning. All the plastic we have was burning, and it was all getting to be particulate matter, and we were all breathing it. And I just don't understand why. And the next few days, nobody other than me was wearing a mask, and people were just breathing in all this smoke and all this plastic crap and all these dead Teslas. And I'm wondering, is our health department monitoring it? Is our city monitoring it? Is anybody worrying about what is on the ground? Because the rain didn't make it all magically disappear. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really big question still. I know AQMD and the Army Corps are starting to end their air quality testing efforts in the debris in the burn zones because many of the lots have been cleared. That's still a concern because not everything's been cleared. And as for the soil, I mean, that's an ongoing fight for many homeowners who, lost their homes directly and not having insurance coverage or coverage to having to test their own soil, not having any money for that. That's ongoing. I mean, there's still testing happening at the beaches. But yeah, I mean, it did affect the entire region. And really the only way to know if you're really concerned about your own home is to get it tested and see what's in there. But with one thing with lead in soil is LA's got a lot of lead. due to its industrial history. So it is hard to parse out how much is that from the fire, how much is that from previous contamination, unless you have a baseline. So ongoing issue for sure.
And I can kind of add to that because I'm on the UCLA board.
There we go. We got an expert right here.
Meaning that the wind blew most of the air downwind to
Downwind,
you.
yeah.
So that did happen to you. So you're absolutely right. But after 12 days, it was cleared. So as we kick up dust and stuff like that, there's little jumps that happen. But after about 12 days, the wind was clear. It was blown all the way out to the beaches. But it did go through every community, to answer your question.
And following up on that, because I think the other issue is that we're having houses that are left standing. Mm-hmm. And now we have these houses that are now that are having lead and other toxins inside the house because of the wind factor and all these other issues that the lady was mentioning. We need help with that. Fighting the insurance to get an industrial hygienist to do the pre-testing before you start the remediation, and then post, after you clean the house, to test it again, it's a nightmare. We know of several families who have been pressured to go back after they do the remediation without any cleaning, to only find out that they're getting sick and they had to exit again after a month and a half. Because they realized that the house was now testing positive for lead. I know in my house we have lead in the house and also outside the house. I hear your comments about getting the community to band together to lower the costs. How can we get the community of those homes that are left behind standing to band together about this issue of lead?
Yeah. So that part, you're absolutely right. The standing houses are the worst scenario and the worst case of what's going on. And we are coming together because a lot of those houses are still going to have to get torn down, and they're not even given insurance for them. So the remediation of them and all that, you guys, the ones whose houses are standing are in the worst situations. And that's what we've been talking about also, because they're the ones who the health risks are the highest, with what she brought up. Those are the ones where you get the nosebleeds, you go to the hospital, the doctor's telling you you're fine, and you're still going through the situation trying to figure out what's going on. So those are and we are working on that. That's the whole point, is to make sure that there's money and funding to come as a community. That group rebuild with the soil testing and all of that would come together with that, along with the remediation. That's the point of doing it together, because now we can attack all the houses that are still standing and say, no, they need to be, the insurance company's saying no, but that house needs to be torn down. They can't go back to that house. It's unsafe, especially if you have kids. But go ahead, I don't want to.
No. So United Policyholders is an advocacy group. And that is something that we have been beating the drum about. We have direct lines to the Department of Insurance. Things are starting to move. There's a lady, I can't think of what her middle name is. She has two last names, Jane Moore from the Eaton Fire Resident United, who is mapping anybody who has industrial hygienist tests done and what those results are. So it's moving forward. Our issue with all of this is this community is an older community with asbestos and lead. That's the first issue. The second issue is we're finally becoming educated, because in the Marshall Fire in Colorado, there was homes that got taken down to the studs, but that was few and far between. And they had to fight hard. And now the insurance companies are digging their heels in to try to not pay on this. But it's starting to move. Not at the speed that it should be. I modified my home. I put metal gates on it so that, there's this set of standards from the IBHS, which is every guy's dream job. They build things to destroy them. And they blow, wind and embers and hail, and they determine how these houses or roofs are impacted. And I did my home to that standard. I had to redo it because they were not in place before. And, the first 5 feet around your house, nothing combustible. All of these things need to be recognized. But But I wanted to go home and I wanted to take those metal gates off because I don't want a standing home. I'd rather lose my home. And I know that that's not it. The emotional, what we have seen over the years of the emotions of, oh my God, my home's still there. And then you go into that home and you're totally impacted by it. You can't take anything out of it. You continuously are losing. At least when I lost my home, I lost everything at once and could start the process. These people are being picked apart. And we keep advocating. We keep being a voice. People in your community are doing an amazing job, but it's a problem.
Yeah, and I will add, we do have a guide on LAist about how to battle your insurance company and, maybe getting a public adjuster to help you out. Depending on your insurance, there is a big lawsuit around State Farm, as you well know, I'm sure, and investigations by the Department of Insurance looking into this very issue. So I think as Annie and Zaire have said, the scale of that effect, I think, is pushing some change at this point, but we'll see. All right, I think we have time. I want to also leave some time. We want to have you guys talk to the panelists. So yeah, we have time for maybe one more question. One or two. We can take two.
We won't leave until we answer all your questions.
A question for Zaire? Is it?
Yes, yes, sir.
I like your T-shirt, by the way.
Thank you
It's
so
great.
much. It
Thanks.
represents.
So I used to live in 91001. Question about these consortium rebuilds or groups getting together with a contractor for 10 homes or 2 homes or whatever. I don't necessarily agree with the gentleman back here that that's impossible, but it just seems like a super heavy lift to just do. And I hear stories from contractors and architects that, oh yeah, I'm working on these 5 homes down on a certain street, and so there's maybe these little ad hoc things happening, but are you aware of anything in a more organized fashion? For example, if 2 months from now I've been with my architect, I get my plans all together, I get my permits, this is what I'm gonna build, I'm ready to go get bids from contractors, how would I know, okay, 5 people down the street also just got their permits, and people like 2 blocks up got a permit. If we all get bids from the same contractors at the same time to build those 10 houses, 2 houses, or maybe it's just my next door neighbor, 2 houses, then the economy of scale would be there. Is anything like that happening to organize that kind of thing?
Yes. So great question. That is the A&R, the Altadena Native Rebuild. The point of that is to add all of the contractors that you may come across to put them on a page, and it will be an opt-in program that everybody doesn't have to do, but it's an opt-in. It will literally be like the debris removal. It will have a captain that'll oversee all of the different contractors, so you don't have to deal with all the different, going back and forth is the idea of what's being put together. And then on that scale, all of those splinter cells, as we call them, of people, all of those will be grouped in to one entity, basically. So then anybody who does not want to opt in, you could still, of course, and I figured it'd probably be like 85% people who would, because if philanthropy's paying for it, the government's paying for your stuff, and all of this is being funded into it, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Now, if you're just rich and you just like, well, I don't care, I just want to do it my own way, I can't say anything for that. I'm just trying to make sure, and when I say I'm speaking for us. Always know that. When I say I'm speaking, y'all all gonna make me cry because everybody who's in here that's from Altadena, I'm speaking for us. I'm not speaking for myself. So every time I say this is research done as a group of Altadenians who've done all of this work, all the smartest minds, the JPL people who lived across, all these people are putting all this together to try to formulate this and put it in a plan, because it has to be innovative and it has to be different, that has never been done before. So you cannot think of it as, oh, well, normally in contracting and normally it happens like this. That's not the scenario we're in to actually build back. So we have to get that out of our minds and come with a whole new mindset of what can be, and we define that and move the needle forward. But to answer your question, yes.
And Zaire, how do people follow, like Altadena Native Rebuild is a website?
Yes, all of that is about to get put out.
So write down that name.
So literally, first I had to sit down with Catherine Barger and get it to the governor and get it to so they could see all of it, and then literally started. I do the work first. I'm somebody who likes to get the work done, then have an answer instead of talk about theory. So it literally, now that the work's done, philanthropy's already talking about how they can fund it, how banks can fund it, all of that's coming in. So you'll hear more and more about it. It'll be on websites. I haven't figured out where to put it because—
And we will cover it at LAist.com.
There it is.
And yeah, Dan, I wonder if you might have some perspective too on that. Like if a block of people come to you, or like you'd get together when,
Yeah, so at Williams, we're members of the Building Industry Association. It's one of the larger trade groups that home builders participate in, fights, battles for the industry and bands together. It's how we network. So at that level, we've been engaging with really all sizes of builders, but mostly those that can build at scale, larger builders, to try to bring them along and figure out what they're willing and capable of doing. And so we believe that the Building Industry Association, also in jumping in the ring with Catherine Barger and Mayor Bass and really engaging at the political level, will soon be able to say, hey, here's some organized resources of how to get in touch with folks. There is a group of home builders called the Builders Alliance we're meeting every single week, enough firepower to build, 5,000 homes a year type of home builders. And so we're just trying to figure out how to engage and how to bring an organized approach so it's not haphazard and all over the place and just lead to more confusion. So it is early. There are many things that are on the precipice of rolling out.
So this is something people should just keep an eye out for, not necessarily have to know right now, but it is a good idea to start talking to your neighbors maybe who are pretty sure they're going to be or taking the steps to rebuild, and maybe start talking to them now is what I'm hearing.
And can I add, it's a 2-year rebuild back plan also. So it's not, most of our people were elders. It was a lot of time. So that's why it's such a push, is to say if we can do this together as a community. It's saying 2 years. The Army of Engineers, I've met with hundreds of them. They literally came down with that timeline. They were like, if everybody comes together and does this, can it be done in 2 years contractually and all the way across the board? And it was like, yes, they just have to be together. The reason we are able to do that is because we don't go across a lot of county lines. We have all the same regulations. We have all the same everything. So we won't have that problem, which a lot of other people, fires and stuff was across, or disasters were across county lines.
Yeah. Great. We're about out of time.
We're going to do,
Yeah, Becca.
before we end. Erin, will you do the honors?
Oh, we've got a raffle.
Yeah,
That's
we have
right.
a little swag bag, an
we've got a
Altadena swag
Okay,
bag.
all right.
There's a print from
Can I get a
Austin
drum
Scott.
roll, folks?
There's Altadena Candle Company. There's Mayana's Body Butter, all from Webster's, the iconic
I don't think I
Webster's
should do
Pharmacy.
this.
Who wants to draw?
Zaire, come on. Yep. I think you got it.
You're the
'cause
closest.
Try, buddy.
You're also right next to me. All right.
Okay,
All
okay.
right, I'll read it.
Go.
All right. The ticket number is 783-083.
083. It's you. Excellent. I have it back there in the back.
All right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And support local businesses in Altadena and Palisades.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You'll have a few minutes to come up and speak with the panelists, but let's give our amazing panelists a hand. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming. We want to be here with you as you navigate this process. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we will do our best to answer your questions and provide reporting that is useful for you. So thank you.